Hi everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be doing Microeconomics A Application. Application is one of the most important things in your economics exams, and for microeconomics I find it quite difficult to find specific examples, so I've compiled loads of examples for almost all of the micro spec, and that should help you especially for tomorrow's exam. Let's get into it. So the basic economic problem. For that, we have the water scarcity in Cape Town, South Africa, during 2017 to 2018. The government announced Day Zero. This occurred when dam levels were so low, water taps were to be turned off and people to be sent to communal water collection points. Water use was temporarily restricted to 50 litres per person per day. Demand shifting right. Increased demand for e-commerce business post/during COVID-19. So Amazon announced a 200% increase in profits to 6.3 billion relative to the previous quarter in 2020. And then we have increased demand for Peloton equipment post/during COVID-19 as well. Peloton provided online classes and structured workout sessions from home whilst gyms were closed nationally. Thus, demand drastically increased with a 172% rise in revenue to $607 million during this period. So demand shifting left, a decline in restaurant dining due to technological advances in the food industry. Introduction of apps such as Uber Eats and Just Eat decreased demand for restaurant dining due to the app's convenience. Supply shifting right, fracking development in 2010s. During the early 2010s, the development of hydraulic fracking as a method to extract oil from shale rock formations in North America caused positive change in supply in the oil market. Supply shifting left. Rising energy costs decreasing supply in the fresh produce market in 2026. This is a very recent This is a very recent example. Examiners will like this as it shows you keeping up to date with today's times and how that affects the economy. So following oil and gas disruption in the Middle East due to the US-Israel versus Iran war, higher fuel prices made it more expensive to heat glass houses. Thus, costs of producing for the producers increased. Thereby, producers are less willing to supply the produce to consumers. Therefore, supply has shifted inwards. So inelastic PED, we have cigarettes. According to researchers from the University of Kentucky, the PED for cigarettes in most advanced countries falls between minus 0.25 and minus 0.5, which is quite price inelastic. Elastic PED, McDonald's. If McDonald's raises their prices, consumers can easily switch to other brands such as KFC, Burger King, etc. Thus, it is price elastic. Inelastic price elasticity of supply. Wembley Stadium. If ticket demand triples, the stadium cannot increase supply seats to fit accordingly as there's fixed capacity. There is a picture I took myself from Wembley Stadium as I went to the Sidemen charity match. I've never mentioned that before, so yeah. Elastic PES. Fast fashion Primark can quickly change production levels for popular items as raw materials are easily sourced and assembly lines are adaptable. XED complements. Printers and ink cartridges. HP sells both of these, linking to the bait and hook model, where they sell printers for low prices to hook consumers into purchasing high-margin ink cartridges consistently. XED substitutes. Brand alternatives. Coca-Cola and Pepsi have very similar goods. Near identical, thus are close substitutes that try to stand out through advertisement, branding, and partnerships. YED normal goods, necessities, bread, milk, rice, and fresh produce see an increase in demand as income increases, even if only marginally. Luxuries, restaurant dining, foreign holidays, iPhones, designer brands, and theatre entertainment. YED inferior goods, store brand product. Tesco branded cereal, there should be a comma, tea bags, tin food, etc. Low cost leisure, local holidays, example, Blackpool or Skeggy Butland, YouTube, cycling, these are all low cost leisures, so that would be an inferior YED good. Negative externalities in production. Urban river pollution in Bangladesh. H&M, Zara, Primark, etc. all host factories in Bangladesh, often established around the riverbank. Thousands of tons of waste materials are released into the water regularly, and while there are rules and regulations, they are often not obeyed or enforced correctly. This has severely impacted agricultural area close to the polluted river as well as citizens' livelihoods, impacting their ability to garner clean and safe water for washing, cooking and drinking. Negative externalities in consumption. Sugar consumption. Excessive consumption of junk food with high sugar content can lead to health issues, increasing healthcare costs for society. Positive externalities in production. Invention of the transistor at Bell Labs, 1947. Bell Labs funded the original R&D to replace fragile vacuum tubes. Their invention bred innovation, allowing for the development of smartphones, tablets, etc., aiding companies like Sony and thereby generating positive externalities for the entire global economy through the initial R&D. Positive externalities in consumption. The Global Polio Eradication Initiative. The large population that receives a vaccine protects vulnerable individuals who may not be able to for health, age, etc. reasons. Also, by receiving the vaccine, one study estimates it could save over $128 billion in medical care costs between 1970 and 2050. Public goods, flood defences. The Thames Barrier in London is one of the largest movable flood barriers in the world. It closes at high tide to prevent the North Sea storm surges from flooding central London. Common access resources, public forest, the Forest Dean in Gloucestershire. England is a prime example of a public forest where logging, hunting and harvesting are permitted, yet under strict regulations to allow for protection from overexploitation. You know, the tragedy of the commons and such. Indirect taxes, specific taxes. The soft drinks industry levy is a specific tax where soft drinks are taxed per unit based upon sugar content. The objective is to resolve market failure. Ad valorem, value added tax, VAT, is applied to a lot of goods and services at a standard rate of 20%. Subsidies, the Mode Shift Revenue Support Scheme, SC 10-238. The objective of the MSRS scheme is to shift freight traffic from road to rail or inland waterway by covering parts of the costs associated with the latter modes of transport. The scheme's main focus is environmental benefits and to incentivize firms to grow their use of rail and or inland waterways to transport freight. The maximum budget for the scheme, shared with the Waterborne Freight Grant, is £137,500,000. Firms that have received parts of this grant include Tesco, Maritime Transport, Eddie Stobart, John G. Russell, etc. This is a very recent example. I think examiners would love if you included this. It's not very popular. I just found it on the government website, and they just recently started giving out some of these grants as of a couple days ago. So I think examiners would absolutely love seeing such an example. Okay, moving on. Regulation. Age restrictions, laws to prohibit the sale of alcohol and tobacco to under 18s in the UK. The Online Safety Act protects under 18s from viewing explicit material, self-injury or disordered eating related content in the UK. Traffic regulations. The Beijing road space rationing policy prevents vehicles from driving on a specific weekday on the 5th Ring Road, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. to reduce traffic congestion. State provision. Education, state schools in the UK. You may even go to a state school, so you could use your own school as an example. Healthcare. The NHS provides a variety of state-funded medical services. Tradable pollution permits. The Kyoto Protocol, an international treaty requiring industrialized nations to reduce greenhouse gas emissions based on the scientific consensus of climate change. This inspired the idea of tradable pollution permits within the UK. Maximum price. The energy price cap. Between the 1st of April 2026 to the 30th of June 2026, the energy price cap is set at £1,641 per year for a typical household who uses electricity and gas and pay by direct debit. This is a 6.6% decrease from the 1st of January 2026 to the 31st of March 2026 cap. Near perfect competition. Now we're looking at market structures. Indian agriculture. In India, farming accounts for approximately 55% of all jobs, thus many buyers and sellers. Most farmers in India are already in possession of land that they have inherited and low startup costs, thus low barriers to entry. The overall temperature and humidity levels across India are the same, so farmers grow the same crops and harvest in the same seasons, therefore homogeneous goods. So Indian agriculture is an excellent example of something that is near to perfect competition. Monopolistic competition, the fashion industry. Companies such as Boohoo, and that's supposed to say ASOS, which are based entirely online, have taken large market share as low costs mean low consumer prices. The airline industry, an influx of budget airlines has made the market more competitive. For example, Ryanair, EasyJet, and Jet2. I don't know why Ryanair is the only one in quotations. Anyways, they are able to offer low prices as they often lease their planes as opposed to buying them, which significantly reduces their operation costs. Competitive oligopolies, the UK supermarket industry, the big four supermarkets, Tesco, Morrisons, Asda, and Sainsbury's, own more than 70% of the market share. There are several high barriers to entry that prevent new entrants from seizing any market share. Tesco has been accused of land banking, which is where a firm buys a plot of land with no intention of building on it in order to prevent competitors from building on any of their own stores. Collusive oligopolies, OPEC, Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, a legal international cartel where member countries explicitly coordinate oil production levels to influence and maintain high global oil prices. Duopolies, Boeing and Airbus, two aerospace companies regarded as a duopoly through their over 90% market share. The two firms are constantly fiercely competing with each other due to profit motives and geopolitical factors, with Airbus being European owned and Boeing being American owned. Monopolies, Google, formed in 1998. Google has seized approximately 90% of the global search engine market. Natural monopolies, energy, the national grid. Contestable markets, food trucks, for example, Spudman, where barriers to entry are low, as starting one doesn't require a lot of license or training. Price discrimination, first degree. On eBay, customers pay whatever price they like through things such as bidding. Second degree, airline ticket classes, different prices for more or less luxurious experiences. Third degree, uni days offering discounts to a segmented group of students. Profit maximizing firms, COVID-19 vaccine distributors. Moderna sold their vaccines for the highest price out of all other COVID-19 vaccine distributing firms. Thus, their objective was to profit maximize. Sales/growth maximizing firms. Amazon. For many years, Amazon operated at near zero profit margins, prioritizing revenue growth and market dominance in the e-reader and retail market. Disney Plus. Upon its 2019 launch, the main focus was to capture as many subscribers as possible to rival Netflix, prioritizing top-line growth over immediate profit. Ethical objective-driven firms. Lush. They do not test any goods on animals in order to attract ethically conscious consumers and so that they can increase prices and thereby profit maximize in the long run. But a change of reasoning for you. COVID-19 vaccine distributors. Whereas Moderna charged high prices, Pfizer distributed their vaccines to the public free of charge to curb the number of COVID-19 related deaths. Privatisation. The Royal Mail, privatised in stages starting in October of 2013. British Telecom BT, privatised in 1984 to introduce competition and innovation in telecommunication. British Gas, privatised in 1986. Nationalisation. Iron and steel. 90% of steel capacity was nationalised to create the British Steel Corporation under the 1967 Iron and Steel Act. Deregulation. The Transport Act 1985 deregulated bus services in Great Britain, removing licensing requirements and allowing private companies to set routes and fares. Blocked mergers. Sainsbury's and Asda. The proposed merger was formally blocked by the UK Competitions and Markets Authority, the CMA, in April of 2019. The intended goal of the merger was to create the UK's largest supermarket chain, surpassing Tesco and allowing them to cut substantial costs. However, the regulator concluded that the deal would lead to increased prices, reduced quality, poorer customer service, and create a significant lessening of competition. Another example of a blocked merger, JD Sports and Foot Asylum, blocked in 2020 as the merger would reduce competition in the sports retail market, leading to fewer choices and worse services for consumers. RPI plus K, the water industry. Water companies in the UK frequently use this formula to finance large infrastructure projects. Thames Water may need to repair old pipes, thus Ofwat will permit them to set prices at RPI plus K. Raise consumer bills higher than inflation. in order to allow the firm to ensure necessary improvements without losing profits. RPI-X Energy Networks Ofgem uses the formula to set targets for productivity improvements for less efficient firms. This system has led to a large decrease in electricity distribution charges in real terms in the UK. Labour demand shifting right, post-pandemic tourism. As travel restrictions lifted, the desire for holidays increased. Thus, demand for pilots, cabin crew, and hospitality staff have all increased. Labour demand shifting left. Cashiers. The widespread adoption of self-checkout machines has reduced demand for traditional cashiers, for example Primark as of recent. Labour supply shifting right. Increased immigration drives labour supply for a variety of industries up, with around 21% of NHS staff reported to be of non-British nationality, approximately 325,000 of 1.5 million. Labour supply shifting left, the brain drain, where large outflows of tech talent and skilled graduates to the USA or elsewhere, reducing available supply of highly skilled IT workers within India. Wage elasticity of demand for labour inelastic. Premier League footballers possess not easily replaceable unique skills, talent and training, as well as star factor, and thus are quite difficult to substitute. Medical professionals, consultants, specialist surgeons, and similar roles require years of education and training. If wages increase, they will still be hired as it is difficult to substitute their expertise. Wage elasticity of demand for labour elastic. Warehouse packers, warehouses can easily substitute labour with automated systems, making human labour demand elastic. Wage elasticity of supply, labour inelastic. Experienced senior executive roles limited to a small pool of qualified candidates, making the supply relatively unresponsive to pay changes. Wage elasticity of supply, labour elastic. Fast food and wait staff roles require minimal formal qualifications, thus a small rise in wages can attract a large number of applicants. The national minimum wage. Here are some recent statistics for you. 16 to 17-year-olds and apprentices as of April 2026 will be paid £8 per hour. That's an 8% increase. 18 to 20-year-olds as of April 2026 as well will be paid now £10.85 per hour. That's an 8.5% increase, the largest increase. 21 plus year olds and the national living wage is set at £12.71 per hour, which is a 4.1% increase. Labour market monopoly power, the NHS, the largest employer of all doctors and nurses in the UK. Walmart, the third largest employer in the world and the largest private employer with approximately 2.3 million employees. The UK Gini coefficient, the most recent one I could find was in 2024, which is approximately 0.34. Policies to redistribute income, Australia. A 47% marginal tax revenue rate was implemented on the highest earners temporarily. An increased minimum wage, consistent increases in the UK minimum wage, as we just spoke about. Anchoring, putting overpriced items on the menu first. A restaurant in New York City, Serendipity 3, sold a $69 hot dog. They also sold cheeseburgers for $17.95. Consumers, by comparison, perceived the cheeseburger as much cheaper due to the original piece of information they saw, which was the price of the hot dog. After adding the hot dog to the menu, their cheeseburger sales drastically increased. Availability bias, lottery ticket purchases. After seeing news of a jackpot winner, people often buy lottery tickets, believing they have higher chances of winning because the winning image is fresh in their minds. Altruism, Elton John AIDS Foundation, founded in 1992 and has raised over £400 million for HIV/AIDS prevention, education and treatment programs globally. Framing, fighting the virus. During the COVID-19 pandemic in the UK, the government and the media framed the crisis as a narrative of heroes, NHS scientists, battling a villain, the virus. This mobilised public action and fostered support for the restrictive measures. Choice Architecture Workplace Pension Scheme uses automatic enrolment designed to overcome human inertia and increase retirement savings. It changed enrolling into pensions as a choice whether to opt in or not to already opting workers in, and they hold the right to opt out whenever. Social norms, tax compliance letters. Tax authorities have used letters stating that 9 out of 10 people in your area have paid their taxes on time, reducing delinquency rates through social norm pressure. Nudges school canteen food layouts, placing healthy food in easy reach and making junk food less accessible. The principal agent problem. The Enron scandal 2001 is a perfect example of this. The principal shareholders, investors who owned Enron stock and wanted long-term growth and transparent financial performance, and the agents, the executives, key figures like CEO Jeffrey Skilling and CFO Andrew Fastow were hired to manage the company on behalf of the shareholders. The agents used their insider knowledge and technical expertise to hide the company's true financial state. They used special purpose vehicles, SPVs, to hide billions of dollars in debt and report paper profits that didn't exist. When the deception was finally uncovered in late 2001, shareholders lost nearly $11 billion as the stock price plummeted from $90 to less than $1. Executives were eventually prosecuted for fraud and conspiracy. Okay, that's it. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you do so well in the exams tomorrow or whenever you're watching this. And yeah, if you have any questions, comment them down below. I'll be sure not to answer them. Comment any other examples that you may have. And yeah, just have a great day. I'm just going to keep yapping until the intro ends and the video's over. Okay, goodbye.